Right. So unless you've been living under a rock for the last 2 weeks, you will know that phase 2 of the Pangea open staking testnet stake heist launches next week. And we're going to be running a hackathon with our friends at Gitcoin where we invite hackers to come and break the network and to win rewards for doing so. Now, as much as I know you love hearing from me and seeing me muck around and do stupid stuff, there is no substitute for hearing from the big man himself, El Jefe, Le Boss, Stephen Tse. Now, he did an AMA with Gitcoin on Friday, April the 3rd, and we're going to present the whole thing in its entirety. There was tons of useful information that came out. And of course, really all that remains for me now to do is just get out of the way.
Welcome everyone to the Gitcoin live stream. It is Friday, April 3rd. And we're really excited to have the Harmony team on here today to talk a little bit about the company, the protocol, the hackathon that they're running next week. And hopefully we can ask Stephen some questions. So yeah, if you don't mind, take it away. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about yourself.
Everyone. Hi everyone. Thanks, Connor and the Gitcoin team welcoming us here. My name is Stephen. I'm the Harmony founder, and a few of my teammates are also here. And we know you guys for a long, long while. Very glad not only that we're going to launch a campaign together, but we got a chance to chat. It's really great that everyone is now remote. We finally moved the whole team to remote, and now really joining and understanding how you guys have been doing open source and distributed and remote all by default. Just want to say a few words about Harmony and myself just to kickstart. I usually like it more interactive, whether asking questions or a little bit more interactive, especially with the hosts. Is how I felt like instead of like talking to either, I'm really talking to someone that would love to be engaged and go deep. So I would say for the Harmony, the whole idea started is because many of us from working in Silicon Valley in many of the companies like Google and Amazon and Apple as well, when we came out and think about like how does the blockchain going to go to the next generation, when many of us actually still in big company or like coming out to do startup, we're thinking about, wow, it will be a great infrastructure play if we can figure out how to scale. Of course, at that time, many of us were just looking at the Bitcoin white paper and Ethereum just came out, not really knowing what is the really story or even where to look for the solutions. The great thing is at that time, I already started a group after I'd done my first startup and went back to Apple to do a little bit more work in machine learning. We all came out to talk about many startup ideas. We start from machine learning, and then many of us really gather every week to discuss what else is interesting to really build something as a platform. And it turns out that blockchain, obviously, as you guys know, not only have the economic aspect, but also the whole community aspect, the whole technology aspect that scale beyond just a national or a one product. So we really draw many of the team together. So my background is actually in computer science. I did my PhD in system and programming language, type theory, all that fun. Went to Google to build maps infrastructure for Google Maps. So back in 10 years ago, that was the fun stuff to do. Did my first startup in mobile search. So at that time, that was the hot thing to do. And so the first startup to Apple. So maybe coming from quite a little bit different background from many of you of like open source or remote team, but I did my share too. I've been using Emacs for good 20 years, OCaml for good 15 years, and read Linux kernel mailing lists since I was in high school. So really enjoyed this kind of community aspect too, even though I went on to more like academic, if not even big company background. Maybe I can pause here and just see how Connor would like to guide me into the conversation.
No, you're doing great. This is really helpful. Yeah. So yeah, I'd love you to just keep going, right? Like, so when did you actually, found Harmony, and kind of what were your goals at that point?
Cool. Absolutely. So in 2017, it's really our community comes together, I would say our community before our team or our project, because at that time, many of us in Silicon Valley were like, there's so many conferences and cafes, but there are never a few group of people, just like back in the day of Garage, if not like Apple funding and like many of the garage story of Silicon Valley, we came together every week for hours to talk about an idea. So at that time, many of us were really interested in helping each other to get started on any sort of ideas. At that time was really machine learning and many of the ideas of what's happening around in Southeast Asia. Only in 2007 summer, as many of you guys know, everyone wanted to talk about Bitcoin and blockchain instead of like just multiple topics. That time, many of us got serious exploring different ideas. Harmony got started finally when quite a few of us said, let's really write out something that we're all interested to work on together. And the idea come together when we realized that it would be about scaling and still be able to really keep it an open community. And I would say open, not just in the sense of open source or like open open participation. Our take of open is really what we have been really thinking about the economic aspect as well as the community aspect. At that time when we host, we call something called a TGI, it's the Google tradition. That's every Thursday, any entrepreneur just come. Now that's where the technology piece is also for something very similar. At that time, if you guys remember 2017, people were still debating whether it's going to be permission or permissionless platform, whether sharding will work, whether it will proof of work, proof of stake. We quickly converged to something that I'm very glad that it actually makes sense even today. And we survived through today because if you go down the wrong path as a startup, you have very rare chance of survival. So for us, finally, we can come out now in 2 years to say that we are among the first mainnet launched in production that have been doing both sharding and staking. So if you guys, as you guys must know, that's really some of the things that Ethereum 2 is trying to get into. If you think about it, the fact that we can experiment, if not showcase some of the earlier features of Ethereum, if not really carve out some space for experimentation, if not really attracting engagement and break out of just talking about blockchain, but to the non-chain people about some innovation that would come very soon, whether Ethereum with many other major blockchain, is really where Harmony position ourselves. So throughout the time, in the first year, we really gathered a group. In the 2018 was a good year, so we raised 18 million in the early 2018 to really quickly bootstrap the team. And then exactly 1 year later, we got into Binance IEO, but most importantly, we raised another good round. We launched a mainnet 1 month after the Binance IEO to really tell the community we're very serious about execution. We are very has done on also building. And we never forget the community aspect as well. So every week we still really bring on many people to talk about blockchain and what can we do together. So I would say today, the interesting thing is after a year and a half, we're still on our journey. And even though the mainnet is live, we want to keep innovating down the line of what can be the next generation blockchain platform to be, both in terms of like really still keeping the decentralization dreams alive. I'm talking about having thousands of nodes participating, right? Instead of tens, if not just 100. Having thousands of nodes is going to be key, because there's no reasons to even do blockchain. You may as well just buy an Amazon server to do all this if we couldn't figure out this all together. I'm talking about everyone. Second thing to us is very key is the whole privacy aspect. So last year we got really deep into really figuring out what will be the zero knowledge proof going to be applicable to the financial space. I can talk a little bit about that in a moment, where our product is going to go into the cross-fi space. And that's why we'll touch on the third part as well, where we think the adoption comes in. So these are all in our 2020 plan, really more, I would say, morphing into what we have been busy trying to figure out the whole trilemma. And we think it is still what we are trying to solve day to day, to what we think is going to be quadrilemma. Like while you're doing decentralization, keeping the security, not to be attacked, even though you have sharded and will be able to single shard attack. And then the last part is the performance, that we think that this is the way to do scaling. Now throwing the new aspect of privacy is where we think things will get very interesting. Connor?
Yeah, wow. No, that's really interesting. I like that it's more than just the trilemma, right? It's like the privacy aspect as well, which is a whole nother layer. And I'm also some of this is news to me. I should have read up a little bit more, but I didn't realize you guys launched. So you launched mainnet a year and a half ago.
Yep.
Wow. So I'm pretty smooth in the past year and a half.
Smooth will be quite a overstatement. We haven't seen anything that launched as smooth, and it's crazy. I still remember 10 years ago when I started Google. First day, I played with 1,000 machines. Now I play with another 1,000 machine and be part of a mainnet. The difference is I am working with 1,000 humans behind those machines instead of launching one command to do that. So the mainnet launch has been great. I wouldn't say smooth, but has been exciting to learn how hard it is to be when it's truly open, right? Like things just doesn't work. It's not exactly a year and a half ago. We've been launching testnet since the very beginning, but exactly was June about 28th last year, so about 9 months ago. Since then, we have been really trying to figure out, we figure out the cross shard, we figure out the token swap with the major exchanges, so it's native, and now we finally come to, even though we have been having many external nodes, finally anyone can be our external node now. Because it has not been easy, making sure the membership works with the sticking, with the slashing and availability the way Cosmo is able to do.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And I guess maybe this is a good time to kind of transition more towards the hackathon you guys are planning on running.
Sure.
So I've seen some drafts of the bounties. I haven't seen the final ones yet, but from what I understand, a lot of it's going to be bug bounties, right? And you're trying to kind of stress test the network.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you guys, pushing some new releases or new features that you're specifically trying to test? And could you talk a little bit about those?
That's great. I'm happy to bring up a few points. The question is why? What are we doing here? Why is it so critical? Why don't we just do it any other way? But we call it open hacking or stick heists, having bounties to do that. And it's perfect for this community, right? And then just go over a few points verbally. And then I would love to go through even something, just scroll through about giving you guys some materials to be looking at, so that I would say we actually enjoy the writing part aspect a lot more, of being able to articulate the story. So where we are is we finally been working with a large community we call the Pangea that we started last year to be the extended, I wouldn't say team, it's just extended community of just a few of us. Really, the dream of a open source, if not now a blockchain project, is it will be sustainable. Whether one or two person got hit by a bus, and we'll still keep going, just like the node, just like the source code, just like the economics part. So last year, right after the Binance IO launch and the Mini launch, and throughout, the most amazing thing that we spend time on is actually curating a community with thousands of people. It started with lots of bounties, lots of big push coming from different partners, in particular Binance helping us to launch a campaign. But the great thing is it's sustained by itself. There'll be always people just come for a few airdrops and a few one-off reward for one or the other. But we never did extend it or for something that are not meaningful to build a relationship and getting to know you. What happened is there end up to be some hundreds of people that just stick around after a year, even though it has been a crypto crisis, right? And not only a few hundred people, there are tens of them that are just seriously day to day. And then finally, through all those people, we really engaged some that really work full time with us to be building our campaign that become an external contributor. The story of Ethereum, if not Bitcoin back then, is very hard to replicate. Right? 2-3 years ago, everyone had reward, everyone had so many projects to choose from, but Harmony is still trying the best to do it the hard way. Meaning really engage a community that stick around, not for the token price or what are you launching this week? I need to know the new partnership, but actually building things together. It takes a lot of time, I can tell you. I mean, day one open source, still remember the debate, when can we open source? how would other similar platform use it or see us and seeing how we felt. We show our GitHub history from the first day we check in, which is like 2 years ago.
Mm.
We've been writing newsletter every month, even though like we have the money and we don't care about like how people see us, and there are lots of people asking us what's next. We keep telling about everyone's progress so that they're engaged. But back to what Connor asked me, what do we want to do like the next few weeks? The next few weeks for sure is really about engaging new group of people that are excited to run our nodes. The question is how. Staking is very hard because proof of work is a very simple concept. Even though it's very expensive, it's not very sustainable long term. Proof of stake is a very sustainable, very new concept, and it's proven out to be like what will be the future. But then no one actually have really put it to test, at least not with like hundreds, if not thousands of nodes. So we are a little bit shaky on how it's going to work. Great thing is we already have almost 9 months of like mainnet production experience. Honestly, we have some downtime, like minutes and hours here and there, that we know how to really work with different group of people. Like for us to write more tests and do more our own way, we know how to do it. We did it for big companies. We did it since we were young and all that. But doing it with 1,000 people is much, much harder than we thought. That's why we really want to engage someone like you guys, Gitcoin. And I can say the other partners too, right? HackerOne and a few others. I really think everyone is an open community, right? So, so we love to engage you guys, like, because I know you guys whether like to play with the tools in a different way, and your desktop is set in a different way, and you like to know in one different way. Is how we guys want to see how it goes. And then there's a specific part about the hack. There's a security part. There's the network security part, and then the network performance part, and then there's the token economics part, whether it makes sense. And then there's the economic security, whether we can use a stake to really safeguard whether the delegation, whether we can scale the delegation, whether it makes sense for so many attacks, but then some of it don't have the stake to attack us. It all has to make sense the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Got it. Yeah, no, I'm excited for this one. And I think a lot of what you said just now really kind of falls in line with like the mission of Gitcoin, right? Is like we're also fully open source.
Of course.
And I think, since Kevin founded it in 2017, it's always been about building the community, supporting developers, supporting open source. So it sounds like we're pretty well aligned on that front.
Absolutely.
So one question I did have for you is on kind of what you were talking about, the proof of stake. So you guys are technically effective proof of stake, right? EPOS. Right. Could you talk a little bit about the difference between EPOS and regular proof of stake?
Absolutely. I think that's where many of the exciting conversation we can get into. Like we can get a lot more technical. We can really understand like line by line, slide by slide about some of the ideas we can get into. And I think that's where it's not just about general idea. Like we really want your help. We want your participation. Let's start with the whole what kind of delegation and what kind of proof of stake that we want to do. So even the last 2 years, there are a lot of different projects. Excuse me. Yeah, there's a regular schedule. There are lots of proof of stake experiment, I would say, and then many good projects for sure. Ethereum too, if not even ADA and Oboro have lots of academic papers and research that we've been learning and borrowing from. What we want to do is really have a simple idea that works for thousands of people, that both in terms of economics as well as participation can be very simple. And for sure, we hope to implement today and actually bring the research to production itself, like writing a few research paper. We actually engaged a researcher, and they say the huge difference. And we talk about a top-notch researcher, right? And I used to be writing a conference paper in security and privacy and all that to know that like how long could have been the cycle. The difference between effective proof of stake is we all know how staking works, if not even proof of work. But no one really figured out how to stop the big stakers, if not the big miners, from dominating and earning all the reward and taking over the governance, taking over the reward, if not changing the rules. And then for the bottom part, how to help people still have a chance to participate even though they may not at that level, we call it the low sticker, they don't care, right? Whatever they do, they may be out of the game soon. Whatever they do, they don't have a say because they don't have big stakes. And they may be like really being taken over and not feel like be part of the community, right? In some way, very much like our voting in society, very much like what Ethereum tool keep really bringing back the social change in the idea of radical markets. They talk about quadratic voting. Well, you guys do it, sorry. I don't need to preach it too much about that. It's really about having a chance of funding, if not allocating, if not having to say whether attention of votes and governance in a more normalized way. Normalized in the mathematical sense of instead of like linear way, you normalize with the square root. And we do the same, but a little bit simpler. We call it like the capped median. So that people can easily see like, what is it going to be? I don't need to do a calculation, square root, even figure things out. But when we're 1,000 people, whoever in the middle should really earn around the middle amount of reward. And for the top, we just cap it off. So it's a easy curve, and then we cap it off so that, yeah, it's great that you are at the top already, but you really don't need much more. Earning like 50% of the ecosystem and being the big sticker and big pool. And then the top part, we lift it up. So at the top, we cap it so that people don't earn as much. And we lift up so that the bottom is capped off and lift up as well. That's it. What it's going to help us is, and the difference with us is, we have thousands of seats of those. So ideally, we want like 10,000, if not even 100,000, how Bitcoin started at one point. But with thousands of people, we have a lot of seats to really bring in a larger community to be participating.
Wow, that was actually a very, very good explanation. I appreciate that. And I want to open it up a little bit to the audience for questions. I know Igor just dropped in some good information, and I think he may have a couple of questions.
Sure.
But also, anyone else, feel free to unmute if you can. If you can't unmute, just let me know and I can unmute you. But
Igor,
what do you got?
Hey, nice to meet you, and thanks for the details. So some folks might know me as like an Ethereum maximalist, but I'm not necessarily. I'm a chain maximalist. I think this community is probably technical, so maybe like throwing some rapid fire tech questions.
Oh, sure, please do.
So how many client implementations of Harmony are there?
Just one.
Just one, and it's written in
Go.
It's written in Go. Cool. Mm-hmm. And then so how many shards currently are in?
4.
So 4 shards.
Mm-hmm.
And then can you talk about the coordination mechanism between the shards? How
coordination, core shard, how we send message around, how to work with the beacon chain.
So let's start with, okay, so Ethereum is going through phase 0, and phase 0 is launching a beacon chain. And so maybe like Ethereum folk might be more familiar with.
I can easily relate the terminology. Honestly, like how I started was also meeting Vitalik. I mean, I read about a white paper Bitcoin before, but there was one day that I went to Ethereum meetup and then went to Stanford, where like Dan Bonnet really hosts an amazing conference, and everyone's just so friendly. And at that time, I was still debating whether to do a centralized exchange or to really build up a bigger platform. And Vitalik's talk was very clear that security and scalability are the key questions that he impressed me on. Even though I read it online, it really make a difference whether a meeting like this or in-person meeting was really like helping me understand the direction. And security is actually something I started. Formal verification. I did my PhD talking about like programming language and compiler. So what you asked me about the language aspect, as well as like how to really figure out the database aspect of like coordination, is something that I study Ethereum for a long time. And I still read Ethereum 2, all the updates up till probably a few months ago, where we got really busy launching this sticking that we know our direction. So back to how to like help Ethereum 2 community like understand why or what we are doing is also very keen to us. So we exactly want the Ethereum vision as well. What we do a little bit differently, and you think about what a new chain need to do, is to figure out how to come up with sharding first, and then native token first, before open membership of open staking, if you know what I mean. So because compared to Ethereum, they have Ethereum 1 that hold their tokens, the economic aspect, and then they don't really worry about sharding. Many things already work, but they need to figure out the beacon chain so that it really record the what are the roots of all the things that can happen with the membership first before they figure out the shard membership. We did the opposite. So last year, right away, we need to figure out whether we can actually maintain a mainnet with a group of foundational nodes that care about the operational aspect of it, which many of the, as you know, all the other projects really struggle with, right? We have ideas, here's the new diagram, I have a different name, never mind white paper, it's 2017, right? Even 2019, many of us are still doing the drawing board, whiteboard series ideas, right? Very few actually maintain a mainnet. Then know by the time you're done time, you simplify your ideas. By the time you're done time, you need to spend more time talking to people that operate the network. So that's what it started with. Second thing is obviously the native token swap that has to happen with the new coin, which all the other chains is struggling with, right? Never mind the exchange don't want to do it. It's actually getting harder and harder because like the token holders don't really care about like whether you're sharded or sticking or not. If you don't even have operational network that have a native token, that have liquidity, that have real stakes inside of like just the token. Back to where we really better some medium to is we do understand the cross shard is hard. We do know the theory of fraud proofs. It's the only academic paper that I saw Vitalik published, and I read it very early. And all the roll-up story now is very exciting. We also talked to a few folks at the Stanford conference just 2 months ago, how to do like Ethereum, EVM, and EVM, and all that. The great thing is we were also very lucky, very early on, that we chose EVM. If I say that in my original white paper, no one was like, people would think that you're just a fork, you're just like picking off an easy infrastructure and doing some changes. And we did. Last year, all we did is to figure out, can we make it sharded, which is not too crazy. You just replicate, like it's the same EVM, you just like communicate different shard. It gets progressively harder. Now you really bake into basically Cosmos plus EVM, right? Which is what some of Ethereum 2 is doing. It's exactly what we've been busy the last few months. Figuring out all the slashing logic, all the tracking of the uptime, availability, become a lot harder now that you're a mainnet. You couldn't really change the data structure, and you have to make sure all the slashing can be verified whenever new node come in, and we have to figure out the state sync as well. Otherwise, it gets too crazy. Whenever you say you are a high performance blockchain, the first thing you have to figure out two things: how do you publicly block so fast, and how do you like prune the block if not having checkpoints so that you don't kill yourself with this space.
So can I ask to that question real quick? Like right now on mainnet,
yeah,
can I deploy a DApp on 2 shards and have cross shard communication on Harmony?
Yes, they can. So let me clarify, right? So the mainnet is already live. It can deploy contract, which again, just a little compiled by code. So we've done nothing fancy, but be able to do that. Of course, there's a security aspect with the tokens and all the connections, so that the exchange are happy to do the token swap with us. But then there's nothing magic there. The only magic is like how to figure out the shard agnostic way of doing transaction. Honestly, we're still trying to figure out what are the best interface. From my point of view, the only difference, I would say the only difference between Ethereum, Polkadot, and Cosmos is how uniform is your sharding or like scaling, right? Obviously, they all take in different approach of substrate and IBC and all that, which we all study as well. We only believe into the Ethereum vision. It has to be as uniform as possible. We fell just short, so we need 2 blocks to do cross shard with the beacon chain. We are not able to do the shard agnostic all the way to API and RPC yet. We have ideas, we just couldn't come around to. So people and applicants have to explicitly call transfer from one account in one shard to another. They share the keys and all that. I do believe, just like database and backend technology, that hopefully this year, I'm really, really hopeful and make it useful that it will be more uniform, agnostic person.
Cool. I actually have to drop. This has been awesome.
Thank
At
you.
Consensus, we have a team called Pegasus, full of PhDs that are working on some of these problems as well. I think it would be awesome if you guys connected, and I'll follow
I
up.
would love to. I actually read your newsletter all the time, every week. You guys have a Ethereum 2 feature every week, so I actually been reading you guys all the time. Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Igor.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions from the crowd? I can unmute you. You can drop them in the chat.
I've got one, Connor, but I don't know if there's a question from the crowd you want to take.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, Kevin.
Go for
Thanks,
it, Kevin.
dude. How's it going? So I'm curious, sort of like when you close your eyes and you think about where this blockchain network is going, what are your visions for like 5 or 10 years out? What will be the state of the network, and what kind of activity would you like to see it enabling? How will it change the world in the upside case?
I love that question. I think that's the only question that matters for many of us. Like enjoying the ride, if not even all the fundraise and all the asset that we can play with, having the best team and having a global community. If the dream is not big enough, many people will drop off. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you're just playing a centralized game,
Right.
most people realize it's just a game, right? We do believe, and our team are very committed to long term of talking about what would the blockchain bring. By the time people don't need to know the terminology and the technical things, what will be the impact on their life? To us, 2 aspects that we truly believe in that we can even try to share. One is the privacy aspect that we talk about. Most people actually don't even know the solutions for the privacy, right?
Right.
The great thing for us is all these zero knowledge proof, if not roll up stuff, if not like all this logarithmic virtual machine stuff, is going to be at the engineering stage already. Instead of like just ideas, instead of just a cryptographic math paper, that we believe that bringing some of the research result to production, and not just in the Ethereum way. Ethereum already showcase all the possible computation, but make it faster. If you think about what will be a new chain, high performance new chain, no doubt, useful for is for experimentation, especially for expensive ideas, expensive gas fees. So zero knowledge proof for privacy will be the perfect example that, hey, where to use all this underutilized network. I mean, we build a highway, but what to use it for is what Ethereum, I would say, struggling to scale and make it a lot cheaper today. Maybe we'll converge soon. All the ideas should converge, all the good ideas. Mm-hmm. On the opposite spectrum is like, how would the user use it now and what aspect? We do think that the whole idea of sending money for business, for payroll, the whole cross-border financial aspect, especially these 2 months, is going to be even more critical for us to be get a foothold. That it wouldn't be about just about like what is it, the remittance, but many of the business, whether something like Expensify, if you guys are in US, Expensify, Gusto, many of the like now remote team especially, now open source way of community, and different like countries have different like way of doing payments for the employees. I'm not just talking about just shoot up expecting a mom and dad not to go to 7-Eleven to do the transfer or West Union, but helping small businesses to do their finance completely differently.
Got it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. Like, the interesting thing is to hear you say that, sort of how these networks will converge. I kind of have this vision where right now the world is very tribal, and the blockchain world is very tribal. And when we have atomic swaps that will enable you to go from Harmony to Ethereum and back again, then people won't be as tribal, because then you can just transfer value from one network to another. And so it's kind of interesting to hear that a little bit reflected in your pitch. And I also heard a lot about privacy, which is something that I think is really important also. Yeah. So it's neat to hear that.
Yeah, I strongly agree with that. About the whole like cross-chain asset swap, atomic way of doing transaction, and all these even DeFi composability is something we are very interested. Very, very technical. I love building virtual machines and all that. Those are still more on-chain and less chain and chain figure out. And I strongly believe it will happen. There's no reason it won't happen, like Oracle and cross-chain interoperable. But we
Right.
still couldn't figure out what about the world.
Yeah.
The whole DeFi and cross-chain, we're still talking to each other. We don't talk to each other as much as we should be, but we definitely don't feel enough of the pain now these days. If not, what my mom and dad will use my product.
Yeah, for sure. I want my mom and dad to use our product also.
Yeah, I know.
It's a generational
Sending
thing.
love, sending a emoji token, will be fun.
One more question, and
Yeah.
this might be kind of just around syntax, really. But obviously, you guys are a layer 1 blockchain.
Yeah.
Do you consider your sharding and privacy and those layers still part of that layer 1? And if so, are there any layer 2 aspects or improvements that you guys are like thinking about or working on?
Yeah, no, really good questions. We never really look into the difference between with a sidechain like channel and layer 1, layer 2. We do know that there are all these innovation are very valid, right? Fraud proofs, roll-ups, all that are very valid. Those are to us are like the way, the means to the end of providing. That's why I thought Igor asked me a really good question. Are we agnostic enough in providing the application level to use all that, right? So for sure, we need to be faster, right? Right now, we're 8-second block finality. We are very happy, but nowhere close to what application would be happy about. Do we want to keep talking, even if not even researching and investigating into what the sidechain technology we do? But there are many other ways to do it too, to make the block propagation faster, to use much better gossip protocol, if not like really even extend the P2P to be something a lot more, I would say production level, right? Like whether big company, Google, Apple, Netflix are all doing all this CDN thing that blockchain people never really have to worry about yet, right? To be able to truly, not just about theoretically possible to support, I don't know, 100,000 transaction or all this block in the Ethereum way, they require lots of infrastructure level that we care about. But at the end of the day, we want to abstract all that, right? To us, there's really not the difference between layer 2, but better, well integrated and agnostic to figure this out.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. That's very helpful. And it looks like we have a couple questions coming in on the chat.
Would you want to read it for me? Otherwise, I can look at you.
Yeah. I was trying to see if I can unmute this guy, but I don't see him in here.
And
but
maybe I'll take one more, and then I can just quickly like scroll through some material so that you guys have some ideas what else we can ask and talk about.
Yeah, that'd be great. So the question was, how does Harmony differ from Elrond? And I'm not familiar with Elrond as much myself, but
no, Elrond is great. We met them last year. Obviously, they are Binance family with us, and they're also doing Say sharding. They're also very, very great engineers that we respect. And yeah, I met the team in New York, and we really have a great chat. So really, it really comes down to some of the implementation and ideas, how to do many of the like the thing that really can engage 1,000 people. I do think that the testnet and the last year of testing and battle of knows all that is something that we're all both learning from each other. I would say the major difference is really, hopefully all of us can really converge into bringing some of these things to production, so that we can even like cross-chain share the asset. We do believe that even though the idea is similar, like sharding and sticking, there's really no answers. We have so much capital, so much talent. Looking at the same like audience and asking whether they should choose some of these new chain project, we're missing the point about a community like Gitcoin, about more people need to learn more about this, if not even learning from Ethereum and how to experiment some of the ideas earlier. So Elrond, we know each other very well because of Binance, but I do think that in terms of technology, we are very, very close.
Great. And we got a couple more coming in.
Sure.
Mulish, do you just want to unmute and ask your question? Maybe you can.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, explain it.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Stephen. Thank you for the great talk.
Thanks.
Mine was about the token economics. Like, to be specific, like, do you have as the blockchain grows, Do you have like an inflation rate?
Yeah.
And what is going to be like the stake-in return?
Yeah.
What is the period for the stake-in return? And then
Yeah.
maybe last but not least, what is the stake-in rate?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think many of the last year like really come out to be the key differentiation of many of the platform. Maybe this is a good time for me to jump in. It's one thing to talk about a few numbers. It's much more concrete to look at a few charts and all that to be.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'd
Can I share the screen, Connor?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's see what I can show. Obviously, we'll be launching the. I was just preparing some of the tabs. Hopefully, you guys will see this medium article. We are still crazy working over the weekend to finish this, but we should be launching coming Tuesday. Hopefully, you guys will see this very soon about our specific campaigns with Gitcoin. Just love Scott, love Kevin, obviously. Thanks, Connor, today. There's a strong reason why we are here today, even though we are very busy with the launch. We have very specific, even like the entire mechanism of different attacks. If you guys are interested, we have an open community. Even though some of these are internal, we really share with our even Telegram channel already. So feel free to ask us. Let me jump to the economic aspect. So our CTO, Rongjian RJ, was just writing some of these things as well. So we talk about the technical setup, but the most interesting part is where your assets. What about the economic aspect? How do we think about the long-term economic security, if not the block reward that come with it? What about the inflation, about the issuance rate? So I thought we have Nick, yes. So we have this. This is just a general introduction to IFA. We'll share some of these articles. Maybe my team in the background can share it on the chat on the Zoom chat as well. Share Nick article on all these Excel spreadsheet simulation and model as well. That will help us. So to quickly answer your question is, do we want to be a limited supply, fixed supply, or to be a stable platform that use gas fees like Ethereum? It was a really, really struggle. We actually read through all the other chain, Polkadot and Cosmo, even Tesla, but haven't really found strong reason one way or the other. Even though we studied for almost a year just on this, Nick spent lots of time on it, and we actually even consult with some people professionally on this, from the investors' point of view, from the analysts' point of view. We figure out that the more important thing is the community understand what is the governance structure, what are the model that they can expect so that they will stick and still expect some kind of return over, actually even now, right, the bootstrap phase, and then over long term. Some really need to jump in right now to earn the most reward, and we believe so. Because the early on, I'm talking about the first one or two, low participation, that we want to drive it up. So the early people, they will get all the share. Just like when you are mining Bitcoin day one, you have no competition, right? So very early on, we divided by the block reward to be fixed amount per time.
Okay.
And then the fewer the block, the validators, the more you earn if you are early on. But that's very easy to understand. Even Bitcoin and all that understand. The hard thing is what goes on after a few years. So to attract the first few months, I think it's possible. We already engaged a large community of people. Some people actually don't want to just jump around and actually want to stick with you. They know that you are a project worth investigating into and spending time building with. And that's really the kind of people we love to engage. So we have two problems: bootstrap and then long-term sustainable, right? The long-term sustainable is what I felt even Ethereum wouldn't commit to a storage just yet. What we have committed to now is we will keep the issuance rate really, really low, like 15 to 20 years from now, to be about 2-3%. Why we wanted that is because Bitcoin doesn't need to worry about the transaction and transaction fees by the time block reward disappear, where they will sustain for any meaningful transaction and utility other than store of value. So it's a big topic. I can go a lot deeper, but let me touch one more point before I finish. The great thing is we simplify the model so much that if the utility fees, the transaction fees goes up, let's say it's already shooting through the roof. So we have 28 million, 28 token per block right now. By the time the transaction fees is above that, then we just don't issue block issuance. So it's actually very simple to understand. So the total reward, the total expenditure will be fixed. It will be the sum of the block reward and the transaction fees.
Okay. Oh, I like that model.
Thank you.
Sounds very new.
Yeah, we have lots of more reasonings. We would love to get some feedback. Some of the math, like what kind of sticking target to aim for, and in the simulation of like 60% participation, whether it makes sense, and expecting what kind of utility. We want to be a strongly utility platform, right? We really want to bring in transaction and how to tie that together. We have a really lots of charts and simulations that we would love to get your feedback.
Sure. I think you can reach out after this.
Yeah, thank you. Connie, if I can just show a few more slides, really within 1 minute. Just want to give some sense of what kind of things we would love to get you guys feedback. This is a keynote I gave last year, one of the major blockchain conference, really alongside with like Cosmo and Vitalik. They want to talk about a broader picture. So hopefully it doesn't get too high level, but actually have some specific details that you guys would know the journey and the story of our blockchain. Sometimes it's not about a particular thing, right? We can really fix a particular thing, but why? Hopefully we'll get to know each other over a long time. So this is really something what I just mentioned about the trilemma, right? People really figure out that this is an important problem, but then the privacy aspect to us is just beginning. We call it the question of our generation. It will be for this decade, if not more, to come to answer. And the interesting thing is, even last year, we have 1,000 nodes in our mainnet production. We have thousands of people participating. That we're very, very proud of building the community aspect first. And then the whole idea of quadratic voting, and you guys are a big fan of it, so I don't need to say, Vitalik tweeted out about you guys every month, is also something very dear to us. There's no social change without some radical idea. And we really buy into that as well. But then we have a very simple idea here that for implementation called capped median that I just explained it. And then the whole sharding idea and security aspect, whether Elrond or Ethereum, we're very happy to get very technical. We look into like Ethereum code, we use their code, and we know like Elrond and other protocols are innovating that we would love to be part of the story. So for us, the exciting thing about us is we really spend time figuring out the hardest thing, doing view change in production. Even Cosmo said it is really one of the like where blockchain tackle the hard problem first, and we are some of the first that give that a try. Implementing verifiable delay function, something that Ethereum Foundation talk a lot about. That we've been talking, we have engaged on. I wouldn't say like researching with them; they're very deep, but we spend lots of time and we implement our own. The idea is still about, again, I saw it from Vitalik, right? How do we scale trust among people? Again, the idea that radical fair is something very familiar to this community. I don't need to go deep. But this is what I talk about, the community aspect. We even have a broader idea. I'll show you in just a little bit about a really fun idea we just started this week because of the coronavirus. And you guys can all jump into it because now you see what I type in. And things that I type in, even though it's like private documents, this is not. By the time you know my URL, here it is. We just started. We started the whole idea because we used to do like gathering every week. Scott knows it. Scott, whenever he's in town, we'd love to have him join us. We finally started this whole virtual, not just Zoom. Zoom is one people talking, 50 people listening. That we find that just having a few emoji icon, people chatting instead of linear, we do it, we call it the semi-synchronous way. For those technical folks, they will know what that means, just so that you can actually play with different thread of conversation rather than a linear thread. I would love to share this. Maybe Lee, you can share that with them now. We would love to have adding one more. We originally only invite our like closer community, like we have the Dreamer that I told you about, the team, foundational node, and our Pangea community. But I'd love to invite you guys as well. We're just launching it this week because I did it with the team this week, and it was really, really engaging compared to just Zoom talking. But let me keep going. We spend lots of time like going to Southeast Asia, China in particular, if not building a local team, because like the first year was so hard. Without some of this FaceTime, it would have never worked. And then we quickly partner with a few key partners that are outside blockchain. fitness, we think it's a great use case. And Mocha is our big partners that talk about NFT. We even like acquired a company with them called Quid that do NFT that was just, it's going to come out very soon. There are lots of fun things in, just throwing fun thing that Ethereum should know very well about randomness. It's just that we really believe in execution and really talking about how to engage people. You see the graphics, we have a creative director just to understand how to build blockchain for humans. Hopefully you guys don't get lost when I talk about all the PhD ideas, but won't get turned off when we're just talking about like how to really showcase so that more audience can participate. And I do think like whether Gitcoin or the original idea of GitHub and Linux open source is exactly that, right? They're the hardcore GNU, like FSF, if not like Richard Stallman. I was part of that era too. They're very hardcore, right? They don't want to talk maximalist, right? They want to talk to anyone else. And we are actually want to be the opposite. I can talk technical anytime, compilers anytime, but I want to tell more ideas that can actually try with different people. DeFi infrastructure, we have a great partner called Hummingbot that really talk about trading bot very differently. And I think it will be a great AMA for the next one for you guys to engage. Talking about how to engage with the community voices with social mining that talk about it. And our speed of execution is something that we only care about. And then the last part, this is the fiat integration with Carbon. The last part about privacy, we have a really close friend here called Findora that are just amazing in what they're pushing out with their like bulletproof and supersonic as well. But that's pretty much it. We have other network ideas that we can like talk about some other like technical time if you guys join our like what I said about the week 14. This is the week 14 of the year. We just have a document that's shared with our community, and we will all like jump on it to play with it together. Yeah, maybe I'll
Awesome.
get back to you. Yeah.
Only last thing I'll maybe ask is,
sure.
I think we saw like a little sneak peek of some of the bug bounties and some information on those. I know it's not totally ready yet, but is there anything else you can share for the people that stuck around for the full hour?
Well, that's why we talk an hour for today, right?
yeah, we scare off all the.
I think the numbers are pretty fine.
People who can't
We're
make
very
it.
happy to.
Yeah, these are huge.
Anyway, yeah. So what we want to say is there are different levels, and whether tools or like just economic aspect or just understanding the model itself, we'd love to engage you. At minimal, we want to make sure that when we launch it, we will pay anyone to be part of the launch, to be both finding bugs and running validator. Beyond this campaign about hacking it, next campaign, hopefully right after this one, is actually be part of like how to engage more delegation and teaching the community how this all works. We actually assume people know what DeFi and earning 8%, 15% is great. Most people in the world still don't get it. Most like engineers, developers today still don't know about Gitcoin and why they want to work on blockchain stack. We need to teach them. We want to show them as part of the like gateway, right? Because like staking is just a gateway for them to be part of the platform. So that's what we will be doing. Specifically with Gitcoin, like we have like very specific guidelines of like what can we help to reproduce and exploit. In particular, we want to make sure that two things, right? Consensus doesn't get stuck. You are not able to double spend. That's just on the like consensus side, the block production side. And then the reward side is all the slashing and whether like you are able to run multiple validator. We have like lots of cool things about running multiple keys. How does it work in practice? How about you actually be able to delay the sending? Are you earning fair share of the reward, even though you may be in different side of the country running the same machine? We want to make sure that not only that we want it to be like working, we want it to be fair, even in that sense. And then the last part about the economics is even more interesting. Can we calculate and it total up based on the data that we generate and the reward externally? Meaning you don't need to trust our chain, right? You don't even need to like debug our code to figure it out. If I can dump to you all the earnings and all the reward, all the people available and not, you should be able to tell me that, of course, I should be part of the block production for this block. Of course, I should be earning that over this period of time. So we're doing the whole data dump, and hopefully guys can have fun with the data to play with as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we're just about on the hour, but I do want to just open it up. Does anyone have any final questions or
Sure. Let me take
anything
the last
about
question.
Harmony, the hackathon? My plans this
I
weekend.
have a final question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, of course.
Let me start my video. Hey, hi.
Hey, hi.
Amazing talk.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. This is actually a bit more of a generic question, more
Sure.
general, but asking you as an expert. So, thinking of distributed computation, which is, what you seem to know a lot about, what would it take that we can actually create blockchains that kind of give the full scope of what distributed computation allows us to do? You're talking about like function passing, much more sophisticated, because right now things are still very ledger-like. You're really talking about pretty simple addition and subtraction.
Yep.
You don't really allow floating points. You're not really doing anything all that sophisticated computation.
Yeah.
But what would it take for us to actually get there? It seems like you're kind of on that path where you're trying to say, like, at least we're going to get the computation way down in terms of time. I don't know about storage, but perhaps that's also going down as well.
Yeah.
So what would be the next level? What would be the next step to now say, okay, we can actually think about doing a simple neural net on a blockchain?
Yep. This is a great question. Understanding like what will be blockchain different in terms of technical compared to like what we already have today, whether about what Amazon or Google provide, or what is required today into application like AI and cloud computation, if not all these general scientific computation, and what can be theoretically possible, and how is a paradigm different, is actually where I spent lots of time in my first year trying to figure out. Why it took me so long is I couldn't figure it out. Like everyone's have different ideas. It's going to change the world. All the AI will happen here. AI and blockchain are the hottest thing to raise money for. You just get so confused. By the time even you read academic paper, academic people are confused in the top of differently. So I would say finally, I think the general framework is this. We know how to do distributed computation, but we don't know who to trust when you get different results. That those computation is not just computed by you or the partner, but just by anyone. When you say the minimal thing, or why is it so simple now, is because even to agree of a simple, not even addition, of like what is the current variable value is so disputed, right? There's still all these kind of like forks and all that, that it really takes that long if you really want thousands of people in the world that anyone can compute and anyone can tell you a value, and you have no way to trust who and who. Is that what?
But okay, this is almost a naive question.
Sure.
Follow up to that. So what if you were doing something like, let me hash the code and make sure that the code that's running on a particular node is untampered with, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if you did that, could you then say, ergo, the value of whatever this variable has to be the same universally,
Yeah. So that's a great one too. So to keep computing 1 + 2, everyone, even though you know it or not, even though you disagree or not, there's a truth to it. There's no truth whenever you start to talk about state, right? You don't know your input. You can't even agree to your input. That's why the whole ledger, you need to change it up. But the interesting thing is, what about external data, right? That's why the whole Oracle couldn't figure out. And then what about, you can't even know my value, and then you can compute it, you can tell me the result, and that's the whole zero knowledge proof stuff. I do feel that this is really the right time for you to think about why would zero knowledge proof computation, this is because you asked me what would be the next, right? Would really change everything that blockchain is doing right now today. Right. But then it's not as simple as that, right? Like, honestly, if I know 2 years ago, instead of building a scalable blockchain, doing zero knowledge proof would be the most fun stuff that I could have had too. I actually study math in my master, and doing all this polynomial computation in finite fields and all that is coming back, right? I'm sure you must be like understand all this research and academic training. That's just fun. Yeah. Right now, it's really the frontier. Right. I use the word privacy just so that everyone can understand. But underneath it, the biggest change is not multiple party computation, not homomorphic. It's actually zero knowledge proof. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
that's that.
Someone would
All right.
disagree with me here.
All right.
So I'll leave it
Well,
up.
maybe at some point, actually, my company Arboreum, we're working on swarm intelligence on blockchains.
Mhm.
So at some point, actually, I think some of the things that we're talking about, I would love to kind of
We'd love to.
get your
We'd love
feedback
to.
on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'd
So
love
maybe
to
we can
explore.
reconnect offline.
We'll put some content. My team can put my email there directly too. We'd love to really follow up.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Maybe I'll take the very last one from Exile Surfer. I think he has something to say.
I will.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. Yeah.
Exiled Surfer, did you? I think you were just saying hi, unless I missed
Oh,
something.
okay, great. Yeah.
Any final questions from the crowd? I dropped the link in the chat for the hackathon to register.
Yeah, we'll share the few links with you guys. We like to spam people.
Exactly. So the hackathon we're expecting to launch next Tuesday.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we're doing it. Okay.
Let's start hacking anyway. It's just that from Tuesday
yeah.
we'll start paying out. That's all.
But yeah, if you sign up on that onboarding link, you will get email updates. We'll keep you in the loop on what bounties are posted, when they're going up, how long they'll be up. But yeah, definitely join and check it out, because I don't think I've ever seen a bounty for 400K on Gitcoin before. So,
and Scott too, Kevin, obviously. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining me on a good day. Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on.
Steven.
Looking forward to working with you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Cool.
Really
Cheers,
good.
everyone. Thanks for sticking
really
out.
Enjoy this. Yeah.
Have a good weekend. Stay safe and healthy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Likewise.
Bye.
Thanks for hosting, Connor.
Have a good day.